Hi, today I'll be reviewing one of the most boring cars in the world. This is Volkswagen Jetta generation Who Cares. Recently it underwent a facelift, as a result of which the boot opening is slightly bigger. Other changes are so cosmetic you probably won't notice unless you're a Jetta club member or my neighbor who thinks this is what a car should look like. Jetta is designed with the United States in mind. Apparently over there it is a bestseller. In Europe it has its advocates, like my neighbor. Since 1979, Volkswagen sold more than 14 million units, out of which more than 900,000 were sold in 2014 alone. I guess Volkswagen must be onto something here. Jetta is extremely practical, but it also lacks any flair, any joie de vivre. But every solution has been thought through by a dozen committees, and as a result the Jetta owner can look down upon the village idiots who bought their jolly Golfs. Yes, this is one of the very few cars in automotive history that make the Golf seem fun. What can you get with your Jetta? There's keyless entry and ignition, optional of course, so you can open the boot without taking the key out of your pocket, or you can open it with a press of a button. The boot offers 510 liters of space. It's got a regular shape with two niches behind the wheel arches. One is protected with a plastic barrier, the other one with an elastic net. Under the boot floor is a mini spare and some tools. There's also a hook for your shopping, but I don't like how the hinge mechanism is exposed. To fold the seats you have to pull a lever in the boot, but folded seats do not create a flat loading space. It is relatively comfortable in the back, and 3 adults should be able to squeeze in, even if the poor soul in the middle will have a tunnel between the legs. There's a 230-volt socket in the place where you'd expect an ashtray, and there is also a standard 12-volt socket. There are cup holders in the armrest, a ski latch. You can fit large bottles of water in the door bins. In the front, it's typical Volkswagen dashboard. The dials are easy to read, there is an optional display between them. In the center we have an infotainment system. Volkswagen promises the new one is coming in mid-2015. There's a 3.5mm jack socket, cup holders, storage under the armrest, and a big glove box with an iPhone connector. But the door bins, for example, are not lined with soft material like in the Golf. The plastics down there, they feel cheap and nasty. It's much better up here on the dash, but the whole ambience of this cabin just doesn't feel as good as in the Golf. In Europe, Volkswagen offers the Jetta with 1.2 and 1.4 liter petrol engines and 2 liter diesels. Depending on the engine version, we have 5 and 6 speed manuals or 6 and 7 speed DSG automatic gearboxes. Power ranges from 105 to 150 horsepower. Under the bonnet of this test example is a 1.4 liter TSI engine producing 150 horsepower. It's mated with a 7-speed DSG. You'll see a Blue Motion technology badge on the boot lid. It's a bunch of fuel-saving technologies like stop and start system or energy recuperation on braking. It's a shame that Jetta doesn't come with active cylinder technology, which shuts down 2 cylinders when they're not necessary. For example, during cruising or coasting, this would help save fuel. Instead, when I let go of the accelerator, the DSG puts the car into neutral, which also helps to save some fuel. How much? Volkswagen promises 5.1 liter per 100 kilometers in the combined cycle. I think around 7 liters is more feasible. Interestingly enough, even at motorway speeds, the car uses less than 9 liters per 100 kilometers, which is good for a small engine like this. And speaking of motorways, the Jetta may look like a Passat, but it's not as good to drive. It feels unstable at higher speeds and is very susceptible to high winds. And once you're going above 100 kilometers per hour, it's hard to tell how fast you're going. The noise in the cabin doesn't change, but the car can sway more easily. Which takes us nicely to steering, which unfortunately is lifeless regardless of the speed. You turn the wheel and the car turns. It's hard to tell by how much it turns, but it generally changes direction. It's worse than the Seat Leon, which so far was the most boring Volkswagen car to drive on my list. Suspension is comfortable, but not too soft. Ground clearance may be an issue if you need to drive the last mile on a gravel road. And yes, you can change the suspension to make it more sporty. You can order sport suspension, which is additionally lowered by, I think, about 15 millimeters. The question is, why bother? It won't make the Jetta more sporty. You can specify the Jetta with xenon headlamps with cornering lights, which is good. There is a sunroof, but that's quite expensive, so I wouldn't go for that. There is an option of automatic parking, which is something I would suggest. This car unfortunately doesn't have it. And there is a reversing camera, which is also useful. Visibility is good, the seats are comfortable, but you may have to pay extra for lumbar support adjustment on lower spec models, depending on the market. Speaking of money, Volkswagen Jetta starts at around 22,000 euros. This example with extra kit costs around 30 grand. When it comes to compact sedans, Jetta offers the most choice, even if it's not as cheap as Peugeot 301 and it doesn't look as interesting as Hyundai Elantra. Watch more of my reviews and subscribe to my channel. Comment, rate and share my videos. New episodes every Friday. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.